In this video we're going to make a start on modelling a simple torch, the type of thing that you might keep in the boot of the car or in the cupboard under the stairs in case of a power cut, using the free educational version of Onshape CAD software. So first of all, if you haven't done so already, you'll need to set yourself up an account. So you need to go to www.onshape.com/education-plan, and from there you can set yourself up an account using your school email address. Once you've done that, you can log into the software. I've got lots of folders and things here where I've been using the software for a little while, but we're going to start off by creating a folder for our work. So we're going to, up on the top left corner, click on create and create folder, and we're going to name that folder, and I'm going to call it battery torch and hit enter. That will create it. And I'm going to click on the battery torch folder, and in that battery torch folder I'm going to create my document. So I'm going to click on create document and just call it simply torch. If you're not familiar with the software, this is the main modelling screen. So along the top you can see all the different tools that we can use, and those are contextual, so those will change with what we're doing on the screen. This is the modelling area, and you can see it's already set up with 3 work planes. We've got the front plane, the top plane and the right plane, and you can see those also here on the design tree on the left hand side. So if you're familiar with SolidWorks, this might look very similar to what you're used to. So let's make a start on this simple model. In this first video we're going to keep it short, and all we're going to do is to create the back part of the body of the torch. So I'm going to right click on the front work plane, and I'm going to left click on new sketch. Now you'll find it really useful, whichever platform you're using, to have a 2 or a 3 button mouse. It makes using this software so much easier. I can now right click and select view normal to the sketch plane, or I could use the letter N on the keyboard for normal to do the same thing. So if I just hold the right mouse button down and spin that round, if I press N on the keyboard, that comes back to viewing flat on. It tends to be easier to create a sketch on a flat surface as you're looking down on it. I'm going to start off by using the center rectangle tool. So most of these tools have got different options, and if I click on the little arrow by the rectangle tool, I can change it from a corner rectangle to a center point rectangle. So I'm going to draw that, and I'm going to start from the origin. It's actually really important when we're modeling to think about where the origin is in our model, because that's where all 3 work planes, the front work plane, the right work plane and the top work plane, meet up with each other. And therefore we can use those work planes to help us create symmetrical models by using mirrors as a feature. Once we drag that out, we're going to dimension that. So we're going to use the dimension tool, which is this tool with the 2 arrows, one at each end. And I'm going to click on the line and then just click above, and I'm going to dimension that 74. Note that I didn't click too centrally. Normally if you're used to a CAD package or you're used to drawing stuff as a drafts person, you might normally try and put the dimension in the middle because that looks better. But if I show you here, if I click on that line and then I try to do it in the middle, it will pick up the edge of the work plane and it will then try and do a dimension between the two, saying they're 90 degrees. So I'm just going to do that, and then I'll undo it by using Control and Z. So that's why I did that offset. So go back to the dimension tool, pick up that line and click there, and I'm going to make that 74 as well. So that's the kind of the basic profile of the back of our torch, but it's got a couple of radiuses, or in fact it's got a radius on each corner. So I'm now going to use the fillet tool. So fillet is the technical term for a radius in engineering, and I'm going to click on all 4 corners, and you'll see that it defaults to 5mm radius with the R5, and you'll see also that on the mouse on screen there's a tick with a green mouse button on the left. I'm just going to left click, and that will then bring up a dialog box, and I can change the dimensions, and I want to change that to 18mm. So because they're all the same, it's done it for every single one, and that's the profile that I want. Now what I basically want to do now is to extrude that to create a solid block. So if I just hold down the right mouse button and spin that round, I can move that so that it looks more three-dimensional, or I can come over to here and I can actually click onto isometric. So there's the profile, and I want to extrude that back to turn it into a solid shape. So I'm now going to click on the extrude feature, and you'll see that there are a series of options here. We've got new, add, remove, and intersect. Now new will create a new part effectively. Add will add the extrusion to a part that's already there. Remove will take away material, and we'll be using that later on. But for the moment, because we haven't got anything there, we're going to go with new. Now I want actually this to go away from me into the screen, so I'm going to click on this arrow to change the direction. You can see it's gone in that direction now, and I'm going to change the distance to 150 because I want it to be 150 millimeters. And if I just hit enter, it will show me a preview of that, and if I'm happy with that, I can then click the tick to say that I'm happy. And so that's the basic part of the torch done, the main part of the body, if you like. In the next video, we're going to put the lamp end on, but in here we're going to add on a few more details at this end first of all, just to finish this video off. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a little radius on the back end. So I'm going to hold the right mouse button down and spin it around until I can see the rear face. And in the last part, we used a fillet sketch tool to create a radius. In this part, we're going to use the fillet feature tool, which is this one here, and we're going to use that to apply a radius to these corners. Now if I click on that face, it will actually apply that to all of the edges that are connected to that face. I don't, however, want a 5mm radius, I want a 2mm radius, so I'm going to click on the 5, change it to 2, hit enter on the keyboard to get a preview, and that's what I want. So I'm now going to click on the tick. I'm now going to make a little indentation on this side, which is a little detail on the model. So I'm going to right click on this surface and then left click on new sketch, and then I'm going to press the N key for normal to, and I'm now going to create a sketch on here. I'm going to start off with a circle, so I'm going to use the circle and I want a center point. I'm just going to make sure that it lines up with the origin. It doesn't really matter where I draw it, but I'm just going to drag that circle out, and then I'm going to use a corner rectangle. So I'm going to pick the corner rectangle, I'm going to hover over the center of the circle, then go up. You hopefully can see dotted yellow lines. That'll tell me when I've picked up the kind of the 12 o'clock position on that circle, if you like. And then I'm just going to drag this out. Now I've dragged it out a little bit big on purpose because I want to show you a couple of other tools. So this is the coincident tool. So if I click on that, if I click on this point and I click on the circle, it will move the two together. Now because I hovered over from the origin, there's already a coincident from the center, so it's kept the circle center, it's just made it a little bit bigger. The other thing that I want to do is I want to line up this corner with the end. So again, I'm just going to click on that corner there. I could click on the top corner and then click on the end line, and that brings it to that shape as well. Now with a sketch, one of the most simple rules is that a sketch should only ever have two lines ever coming away from a point. So on here, if we take this point here, I've got the circle going around anti-clockwise, I've got the circle going around clockwise, I've got a vertical line coming down, and I've got a horizontal line going across. So I've actually got 4 different lines coming away from that point. So what I need to do is use the trim tool, which is this tool that looks like a pair of scissors, and get rid of any additional lines. So I'm going to get rid of those 2 lines, and I'm going to get rid of that part of the circle. And now I've got a sketch that meets those requirements. If I take any point on this sketch, there's only one line going off in each direction. Okay, so I've got a maximum of 2 lines going off from each point in the sketch. The exception to this is if we've got construction lines, but we'll look at construction lines later on. What I now need to do is to dimension this. So I'm going to use the dimension tool, and I'm going to first of all dimension the radius. So the radius here wants to be 15 millimeters. If we dimensioned the circle beforehand, we would have dimensioned it as a 30 millimeter diameter. And you can see that it's stayed locked on to being lined up with that. It's automatically put a coincident in there, as we said. I now want to dimension the length of these lines. So I'm going to pick this line and I'm going to dimension that, and that wants to be 68 millimeters. Okay, now you can see that that's come away. Now if you look at this, we've got a blue outline on these lines and a black one on that. That's the only one that's technically fully defined, but we want that point to be back over there. So let's do that. Let's click on that point and let's click on that line, and that should bring it back in now. Okay, and that's the shape that we want. Okay, so that's the shape we want. Let's apply a feature to it. So we're now going to click on the extrude feature. I'm just going to hold the right mouse button down and spin that around, and at the moment you can see that it wants to add material on here. It's defaulted to 25 millimeters and it's coming outwards. What I want to do is I want to remove material, and you can see now it's realized, the software's realized it's got to go in the other direction, so it's automatically changed direction for me if it wants to remove material. But I don't want to go 25 millimeters, I want to go 0.5 millimeters. So put 0.5 in, hit return, click the tick, and you can see that it's just taken that small cutout. Now I want to do the same on this side, but instead of having to redraw that, I can mirror this feature. So I'm going to use the mirror feature tool. Now this defaults to wanting to mirror a part. So you can see that we've got part mirror in there. If I click on the arrow, I can change that to feature mirror, and now I can select the feature that I want to mirror. So that was extrude 2. I can do that on the design tree. And now the mirror plane, so I click in there and I want that to be mirrored about the right plane, and I'll click the tick, and if I hold the right mouse button round and spin that around, you can see that that's now mirrored that on the other side. And that's it for this first tutorial.